Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. My guests today are Katy and Dean Turbeville, and you coming to us from Yarn Adventure Truck, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to my channel.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you.
So we've met at H&H, and we'll talk about the reason you found yourself at H&H and what you achieved by going to that show. But before we go there, let's start from the very beginning. How did the idea of Yarn Adventure Truck was born?
So it's kind of a long story, roundabout. I started knitting in 2010 when he was in med school, and I was teaching elementary school at the time. And so when it came time for him to go to residency, I decided that I was done teaching, didn't want to do that anymore, very burnout. And when we moved to Muncie, Indiana, I opened a brick and mortar yarn store there and lived out a dream of a small yarn shop in a semi-rural-ish, semi-largest town. And it was fun. It was great. We had a wonderful time. Pretty much a typical small yarn store in a mid American city, basically. That's it. And but we figured out pretty quickly that we missed getting to do anything else. So traveling was very limited and things like that. So residency is a pretty short amount of time. It's only 3 years. So when I found a business partner, sold the shop to her, and then we moved home to Arkansas, and I basically said, I still don't want to teach anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach knitting classes. And so I taught knitting classes for 7 years. So that was pre-pandemic, and like when at beginning of 2020, like January, I had a full schedule. Like I had built up this business, and I was doing a podcast with my friend, and I was doing all these things, and I had a full schedule of classes. And then the pandemic hit, and extroverted me was super sad because there was nothing to do and nowhere to go. And I did a lot of knitting, including this beautiful top I'm wearing. And was really fun. But we quickly decided that it was time to get out of the tiny town that we were in. So part of that, 2021, we were like sitting there and we're like, okay, we're kind of getting ready to move out some more and do more things, and everybody's kind of moving around more. What are we going to do? Our whole dream is we've been married for 11 years at this point. The dream is to live in a van. Like that's what we want to do, drive around, travel all the time. That's what we want to do. And so like, well, how much is it going to cost to make that happen? And when we start looking at the cost, we're like, well, how much is it going to cost for me to do this yarn business that I've really been wanting to do? And we realized it was going to cost us about the same amount to invest in either this lifestyle of travel full time, or traveling with a business that would help pay our bills and like really make things happen for us.
And there were 3 or 4 other yarn trucks at the time.
Yes.
And so Katy knew of these and
Yeah.
had sort of some idea of what it could look like. But we went pretty quickly from here's an idea for Yarn Adventure Truck to full swing buying a vehicle and making the truck.
So we bought a vehicle in April of 21, and we hit the road in July of 21. So and it wasn't full time at the time. Was driving I was driving and going to all these places. Not full time at that point, but building up a schedule, and he would travel with me every other week when he could, because that's what his schedule allowed. He was working at a hospital every other week, and so that kind of allowed for us to be able to travel a lot but not be like fully into this, give us some transition time basically. And then so last year pretty much I was driving about 35 to 40,000 miles a year, and for the last 2 years. And at some point I said, hey, let's do something different. So Dean goes, I don't want to do medicine anymore. So now we are so he figured out.
It was my turn to get burned out.
Yes.
So I was ready to do something different. This was sort of taking off, and yeah, so we just jumped in head first and switched to an RV where we could live in here as well. And so now we live on the road full time, sold the house, and
Yes.
full time yarn adventure.
Let's talk about the names of the trucks. So
Okay.
what came first and how did you decide to name your truck?
So our first truck was named Ellie, and Yarn Adventure is basically like we're going on an adventure, and we like to compare ourselves to the characters in the movie, Disney movie Up, Carl and Ellie. So Carl is like this curmudgeon old man who doesn't say a lot and kind of like, but and Ellie is this super extroverted redhead who has a lot to say and is very like gung ho about everything. And they were obsessed with this character who traveled the world. It was a archaeologist, and so this character, Ellie, she is out there
Adventurous.
and adventurous, and their whole thing is adventure is out there. And so that's where the Yarn Adventure name came from. And so when it came time to give our truck a personality, Ellie really fit with that personality. And so we found bespoke things, indie dyed yarns to fill the truck with. And then when it's time to change trucks, we I just looked at this one and I was like, her name is Evie, and that's what it is. So EVIE is our current truck's name, and she gets us where we need to go. So
Well, when you have a yarn store, it's sort of this graduate process of filling it in, but also you have more storage space. With the truck, there is somewhat some limits to it. I imagine. I'm not 100% sure. Is it difficult to choose what you're going to carry in the truck, and how did that process happen?
yes,
It started out with just people that she liked that, over the course of 10 or 12 years, she had developed a relationship and known these people, these, indie dyers that she had seen when we went to festivals and yarn shops all over the country when we traveled. And that's sort of how it started, was you just contacted people and said, hey,
I like
I'm
your
doing
yarn.
this thing. I like your yarn. Do you want to be a part of this?
And the whole goal is that we're bringing independently dyed yarn to as many people as we can. So, and we're also sharing that brand to places that they can't go. So, right now, currently on the truck, we have about 37 different independent small batch dyers on board, and we know each of them personally. We've met them at H&H. We've met them at fiber festivals. We've stayed at their houses. Like right now, we're staying at someone's house who has their dye studio in the backyard. These are our friends. And so picking each of those is hard because I have a list that's like another 37 long that I want to pull from, but we're just we can only do about 1,500 skeins at a time on board the truck right now. And so that pretty well says this is our limit and we're done. Like we can't do any more than that.
And
So
you're definitely the creative curator. We go to all these fiber festivals and yarn shops, and we see new people we didn't know, or people that you
yeah,
have known and wanted to have on the truck. And so some folks stop dyeing yarn or change what they're doing, or change their business model and end up to where it's not an option to have them on the truck anymore. And so she's always looking for new dyers, and we're swapping people in and out. And
sometimes it's who people are excited about at the time or different bases. So we typically only carry one base from each dyer. And so sometimes that base doesn't work for us. So we're either able to trade it out for another base that they carry, or we look for something else that other people are excited about. So that seems to work pretty well.
Well, I mentioned when you were a resident and when you were a teacher, this is like full-time, very hands-on kind of don't see each other much. And now you're in the same truck all the time. That's difficult. Like,
yes.
do you get tired of each other?
every once in a while,
Yeah.
I think a lot less than a lot of other couples. We like to, I mean, this was we coordinated it so that we did end up in the same place all the time.
Yeah.
Like that was part of what we wanted, was that to spend time with each other. So
yes.
I mean, of course, just like everybody, yeah, there are times where like, yeah, I'm gonna go over here and you go over here and we'll be okay for a little while, but not very often. Yeah.
It's a small space, but honestly, I wouldn't do it with anyone else. He's a partner, and he keeps me in check so I don't buy too much yarn, because otherwise I would just like fill all the space on the floor too with like everything and yarn everywhere. So he keeps me in check that way. And but he also
we like to say we have not very overlapping skill sets
Yeah.
and personalities. So she's the dreamer, the reacher, the creative planner. I'm the realist, the spreadsheets and labels, and
Yeah. So he
it
keeps
works out
everything
well.
moving forward all the time. And I'm like, let's take off on this tangent.
Yeah.
So it works out really well that we get to spend the time in together, and driving means that we get to talk it out and figure out exactly what the next step is going to be. So yeah.
Well, when you think about Yarn Truck, it's basically like a yarn store on wheels.
Mhm.
What's in your view? What's the same as having brick and mortar yarn truck, yarn store, and what's different?
So the same, I still have a community. It's a different type of community. But I get to see and make relationships with the same people at the same shows. We do repeat shows. Like this past weekend, we were at Hoosier Hills Fiber Festival. And next week we'll be at Elkhart, Quilt and Fiber Expo. And so the people who saw us there in the previous years, they come back to us and go, "Oh my gosh, I bought XYZ from you last year. Look what I made." Or "My friend loved this bag from you, and I'm so excited to get her another one and add to her collection." And so we develop these relationships over time, just like you do in a brick and mortar store. And we also get to have an online community where we chat every Wednesday with them as well. We do like a live thing. And so it gives us a chance to really be a part of what's going on. I do think we get to have a really great variety of yarn in the yarn truck. It gives us, just like in your local yarn shop, we are able to bring you certain things, but we are limited by just the sheer volume that we can carry. So I only have like 5 skeins of your favorite yarn instead of 16.
It's
So
the community. I think that's what she was really going for when we started this. That was
Yeah.
sort of her vision, was creating a community. But the logistics, yeah, are a lot different because we're working with so many different indie dyers, and not just dyers, but I mean, we carry a lot of pins and bags and
Stickers.
stickers and things.
Mhm.
And we're working with all these creative independent folks who are 70 plus makers, and now living on the road full time, like we have to get that stuff shipped to us. And so we have a lot of friends, we have other folks at yarn stores that we pick up a lot of the things.
Mhm.
So the coordinating and the logistics, the kind of small everyday stuff is a lot different. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still it's a community built around fiber and yarn.
Yes, and we get to see a lot of that other side now too. Whereas before, when I had a brick and mortar store, I didn't necessarily have relationships with my sales rep.
Mhm.
And I didn't get to have, I didn't go to dinner like every week with a yarn dyer. While I had community with my customers that I saw every week, and I had that type of community, now I have more of the dyer community where I am able to have pizza dinner and breakfast with our friends from Oink, or stay in a Airbnb with a Q from the Fold Out Cat, or park in Muse 2320's driveway, or I get to spend more time on that creative side, and we get to do things like make yarn with them or design stickers, or we get to be a part of more than just one side of the consumer side of the community. We get to be part of the producer side of the community too.
And things that are hard if you have a brick and mortar and you're only in one spot. You have to travel to all these people, or they have to come to you. And so you're already traveling. So
Yeah, so we get to travel and see everyone. So that's the best part.
Well, to me, it seems like the easy part about brick and mortar store is that all you have to do at the end of the day is to turn that key and open
Close the door.
or close the door, right? whereas you have to create that schedule. So tell me
Uh-huh.
what goes into creating the schedule, how far ahead you schedule things, how impromptu, like, because you think, oh, it's Yarn Truck, you can just turn the key and go wherever you want. But like, I have a feeling that the reality is more. So let's talk about that.
I'm like I think I said, I'm the sort of spreadsheets and labels and scheduling. So that's a lot of what I do. It's sort of but it's a team effort because it starts with, when we were first starting this, it was just looking up where these fiber festivals are, when they are. We knew a lot because we had been to a lot of these
Yeah.
fiber festivals just as, consumers just walking around. But we look at these fiber festivals and say, okay, well, this week, where is there fiber festivals available? Okay, so here's our choices. And then where's the next week? And you start just piecing together, like, where can we get from this weekend to the next weekend? Where can we go?
Yeah.
And so a lot of our schedule for the year is based on fiber festivals for the weekends. But then in the middle, we do a lot of more
Pop-ups.
I don't want to say impromptu, but
No.
because we do schedule them far out in advance, but they change. It's more liquid than a lot of the fiber festivals because it's a yarn shop and we have, okay, here's 6 or 7 dates that we can offer you. And okay, you picked one, so we're going to do this. And because we're doing that, now a couple of days later, we might think about a smaller area to look at for our next thing. So it's kind of a chain reaction of, okay, if this gets booked, and then we just kind of.
So festivals, we're typically booking a year out. So we definitely already have things on the schedule for June 2025. But the smaller stuff, we're talking 3 to 6 months out is typically when we're firming up all the dates for those. And I teach classes as well, so I'm still bringing over those educational moments from when I taught elementary school and from when I taught, classes before. So I'm able to bring something else to the table to the table at the yarn store, and we're able to build a community there as well. But it's building it out
And
a long way out.
It happens less, and I guess the more our name gets out there and the more that we see people and the more that we expand our radius, it happens less and less. But still, there are times where the stars sort of align and someone says, hey, you want to do something next month? And we're like, hey, we have a day, so let's do it. So that does happen, and things get canceled and moved. So
a couple of weeks ago, we set up at a pie shop. And then the next day we were at a yarn store, a small startup yarn store. And then a day later we were at a fiber festival, and all in different states. So,
for example, the pie shop, someone had contacted us out of the blue who was part of a knit group in Evansville, Indiana that used to meet there at that pie shop. And they said, well, we're trying to get this back together kind of as COVID is improving. We're looking to
do more events,
get back to doing something, and we'd love to have you come back and kind of kickstart that and I've talked to the pie company and they said they love to have you here, and so that's how that got started.
And then the pie company's like, we love you, you're awesome, you're different, come back. And so 6 months later we're back, and we already have a date in the books for this fall as well. So to go back to that location. And so those are those relationships we keep building on, and then we'll build other smaller locations around that as we go. So does that all make kind of sense in how we
quite planned out?
Very, very planned out.
Let's talk about the radios. So how far are you willing to travel?
So before, in our own truck, which was a converted airport shuttle, we tried to stick within 12 hours of Northwest Arkansas, which was where we were living at the time and is considered still our home.
And that covered a large part. I mean, we could
Midwest,
go up to Minnesota and out to Colorado almost, and over, Ohio.
Yeah.
But there were places on the East Coast and out in the West that were really not options for us. And now we're pretty much just limited by the oceans.
At the end of the month, we'll be in Wyoming. I'm currently in Indiana. In September and October we'll be in Virginia and Maryland.
We're
So
chatting with some folks in Montana
Yep.
about some things for next summer. So
and a couple weeks ago we actually left the truck with some friends, and we flew out to Tacoma, Washington, and I taught a class out there. So and we've been working with some people up in the Washington State area to coordinate a visit up there eventually. So hopefully summer 2025 we will be headed to
the Northwest.
the Pacific Northwest. So
Do you ever miss, the little house with the white picket fence?
Sometimes
I miss the cats more.
Yeah, we have two cats and they ended up living with my parents. I would say it's strange, a lot of times this is becoming more and more like home as far as from a logistics standpoint of my comfortable bed, like that this is
Yes.
but there's still sometimes that element of it'd be nice just to kind of lay down in bed instead of having to take 20 minutes to roll
set
up,
it up.
get everything set up. And
Or-
there's, things happen and it's hot outside or it's cold outside.
Yeah.
And so it's a little
Right now it's really
more-
warm in here.
a little more work to kind of get things together, but not a lot, I'd say.
I sometimes miss being able to say, "Oh, this is home."
Mhm.
But I really enjoy telling people and seeing the look on their face. And we're like, "Well, we sleep in here sometimes, and this is our home. Like we sold our house, and this is what we bought
And they
right
look
here
around
in
like,
this room."
where?
And so actually our bed is behind here,
Yeah.
behind this wall of yarn. So it opens up and we lay it down. So it's pretty neat.
Katie, do you still have a personal stash, or is the whole truck is your oyster?
I do have a personal stash. My stash is about 5 those black with totes with the yellow tops, completely full. And then there's more on the truck, but those live at my sister's house right now. We have a corner of a bedroom that we basically rent from them to store everything that we need to store. Because we figure someday we'll probably land in a condo or something, but honestly this is way more fun.
You trimmed down when we were doing
Yeah.
this, you sort of trimmed down your stash a little bit.
I got rid of a few boxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, there was, we have our parents and her sister both still live in Arkansas, and so there was no major need to
No, yeah.
cut it all the way down, because these are a lot of what you did before we did the Yarn Adventure Truck was when we traveled to yarn, we would travel to yarn shops. We've been to
Yeah.
228 yarn shops, I think. And so and she's the type of person who, she sees the skein of yarn and she says, well, I remember getting that. It was, 8 years ago. We stopped here and
Yeah.
there was, we went for sushi afterward. And this was, I got this because I saw this t-shirt and
I wanted to make
Yeah.
this, or I love that this was from an alpaca named Peaches who originally lived in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like those are the kinds of things in my stash or things that I have a real emotional attachment to.
Yeah.
And I have a really hard time getting rid of those, but they sit in the box and eventually I hope to make something from them. But if I don't, I love having the collection. I love to just like lay it out on the bed when we stop and like I love to just look at it and I'm like, it's so pretty. Like it's just pretty. So I'm definitely in the yarn collector camp. And I still collect. So when we go to yarn stores, I mean, that's what I look for is something to add to the collection. So right now, I think on the truck, my personal stash is probably about 30 skeins hanging out in
It's
here.
spread out. You have project bags.
I have project bags. They're shoved in the
things that are
closet
going, so.
and in the front. And then I also got into spinning last year. And so I have a pretty healthy fiber stash as well. So which takes up a little more space.
When it comes to going to yarn festivals, is having a truck a plus, or is it making it more difficult to set up, like compared to regular vendors?
Oh, it's so much faster.
Easier, yeah. It's more, a lot of people come up and say, well, you don't have to do anything. You just pull up and you're ready, which is not quite true,
Yeah.
but it's a lot easier than setting up a booth inside where you have to carry things inside. Particularly now, it's always been a lot easier than that, but now that we've changed to this new truck, we designed it specifically with ease of setup in mind and tear down. So it, 30 minutes either way, we can be completely set up and ready or completely torn down and ready to leave.
I like to give ourselves an hour to set up so I can like make everything
Yes.
look pretty. But we can pretty easily just throw open the doors and take out. We push the slide out here, and it comes together very quickly now. So, and having him with me all the time also helps a lot. So before I had a friend who would travel with me a lot on the weeks when he couldn't come, and so everything was always in a different place. Like it never got packed into the same place. So now it's like, well, last night we put this away and we know exactly where it is. So it's a lot easier to pack online orders and things like that as well. So
When you do a trunk show at other stores, do the stores perceive you as like add on to their store as a competition?
sometimes they see us as competition, but I will say that every yarn store we've been to has invited us back.
I think it's sometimes I think yarn stores have a hard time seeing like what the benefit for them is, but for us, I mean, it's all hand dyed yarn and it's all small. We have some sweater quantities, but for the most part, when people buy yarn from us, they're buying 1 or 2 skeins at a time, just to, the yarn collectors or I'm gonna, make a hat out of because it's luxury bases, it's different things than what you're gonna see at any yarn shop in the country. And so we bill it to yarn shops as, when we show up, it's an event. We bring people to you. We bring dyers to you that your customers have not seen. They go in, they buy their sweater quantity from you, and they buy 1 skein of,
An
luxury base
accent
from
from us.
us.
Yeah.
And again, like she said, all the yarn shops we've been to have invited us to come back. But there is, occasionally we get some, like, well, I don't know about this, from yarn shops, but
Well,
it's
and I think that a lot of them do see us as it's an ultimate trunk show. That's
Mhm.
literally what we are, because we carry a lot of bespoke bases too. So like Lavender Loon. I am the only shop that Lavender Loon Yarn Company. She's out of Minnesota, and I'm the only one who carries her cotton fluff base. And so she'll dye it up just for me every 3 to 6 months, and we stock the truck with that. You can't get it from her even at shows, like, or in her online shop. It's just from us. So it's something that you're not seeing everywhere else. And it's not something that's really going to compete with what they have in their stores. And honestly, I'm going to send everyone inside to begin with. Like, I want the customer to be excited about us, but I want that community to continue in those doors.
And we're all, not just with yarn shops, but with yarn dyers and at festivals and with other yarn trucks. And, like we're very much in the, rising tide raises all ships kind of category. So it's the industry. It just helps elevate everything as a whole. When you can, the more you can get other people's names out there, the more you can talk about fiber, and it just helps everyone.
It really does. And people are excited about it. That's the best part.
Well, as I mentioned, I met you at H&H. So tell me what made you decide to go there? What were you hoping to achieve? And how was the show for you?
So this was our second trip to H&H. We went 2 years ago as well. The first year that I believe is the first year they had it. And that was right when we were getting started, and we were looking for new dyers. I like to be on the front edge of stuff and kind of the trends and what's going on. And so having a good variety of, stickers and pens and new designers and what colors are really exciting right now, and what bases, like, is slub really on the uptick? Do we need more fuzzy yarn? Do we need what about self-striping, or is speckles really out? I don't know. We should go and look. And so a trade show like that gives us a chance to put our hands on things that we wouldn't normally get to see, because we are living in this little bubble of everything is bespoke and handmade, and so getting and seeing some of this other, like, oh, what are the big brands doing? What are the fashion designers doing? What can we play into and work with? So I can say, oh, you need road trip sock yarn for this yoke and this sweater, but I think you should pair that with, this great base, Cascade Heritage, and here's how they work together. And this is even the colors that I would recommend. So being able to see how they all play together is a really cool advantage that
This year too, another thing we were doing was going around to, that was, more of the first year. We did a lot of that this year too, but the second year, this past year, we were able to go around to other yarn, a lot of the people attending this are other yarn shop owners, other people in the fiber industries, and just hand out business cards and say, hey, we're the Yarn Adventure Truck. Here's what we do. Here's our elevator pitch.
We would love to come visit you.
Come visit you sometime. And so that was a lot of what we were able to do at H&H that we can't do at a lot of other places.
I think you may have gotten a sticker.
Yeah.
We were handing out stickers this year. So which, it is a party when we come and visit. It's an event. It's something exciting that brings people through the door that wouldn't normally know that there's a yarn shop there. And that's the cool part about it, is everywhere we go, we always get someone who goes, I've lived in this town for 15 years. I didn't know there was a yarn shop here. And so it's something that, they're like, I can't wait to come back to this yarn store. And so it's continuing the craft and continuing the love of fiber.
And being able to be, our whole business is all about, like, have you met Panfran Nitco? They're a yarn dyer, but
doing a lot of name dropping.
But it works in reverse. We go, like, we went to the little yarn shop in Jackson, Tennessee, Grinning Soul Crochet, and people from us, further out than would kind of normally travel to there, but in a distance that they will go back is, oh, have you met Grinning Soul Crochet? This is a great yarn shop. You should come here and visit more often.
Yeah. So we're,
Well, I have a group on Facebook called Knitters Gonna Knit, and recently I posted a poll basically asking people to tell us about their favorite local yarn stores. And a lot of people were telling us about their favorite local yarn stores, but a lot of people said there is nothing within like 100 miles where I live. Are you trying to figure out those like no yarn store deserts, basically areas to go there?
So we have definitely done a few of those, and we like to work with local yarn shops. But another piece that we like to work with is knit groups, guilds of any kind, quilt, fiber, anything that's a gathering of people who are excited about it. So hardly any of us really create in a vacuum. We all have a community of some sort, whether it's online or in person, but we usually gather in some way, shape, or form, right? So those gathering points are where we would like to be. And so we do reach out to local knit groups when we hear about them, like the one in Evansville. They didn't really have a great meeting point that they were excited about. And so going there gives them a chance to kind of refill that stash. It also gave them a meeting point. So they literally, this time it was like somebody was on the truck and they were talking about yarn with me, and they were asking about sweaters. And this other lady behind her goes, oh my gosh, we have a group that meets at the library on this day and this time, and you should come and we can help you with your sweater. So we're finding those places more and more. We just have to be told about them. So we always encourage people, if you have a knit group, if you have something, especially if it's on a point A to point B route, even if it's in the middle of nowhere, I don't know, Nebraska. Yeah. We'll try to figure out a time that we can come and spend time with you and enjoy that.
And we get, even on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, we get almost every post we do, someone posts and says, oh, I wish you would come to my town, or I wish you would come to here. And our response every single time is, you get a place for us to park and a few fiber friends together, and we will come. We'll talk about some details, and we've done some things from that. Someone asked us, hey, would you think about coming here? Absolutely, we would.
Will you park in my driveway?
Yeah.
I will absolutely park in your driveway.
Yeah.
If it is flat, I will park there.
We have done a few driveways of people who, well, my knit group meets in my house, or I have a lot of fiber friends. We don't have a meet point, and so my house is usually it. Yeah, we'll absolutely come to your house.
If they do meet somewhere and we contact that place and they won't allow us to park, corporation or whatever problems, then we cul-de-sacs are a thing. We do that. So definitely we try to go places where people are looking for yarns, and we try to give them sources to get things reliably.
I can totally imagine you guys in my driveway for my birthday and few of my meeting friends there.
Yes.
Yes.
Have you ever done birthday parties?
We've not done a birthday party yet. It's just it's
Yeah.
who are you talking about?
No, we haven't done one yet.
We've probably done what 4 or 5 driveways, but I don't think any of them have been birthday parties.
We did
but
a
it's
yard
been-
sale.
We did a yard sale.
We did
yes.
it was a fundraiser for someone who makes blankets for cancer patients. And so she does a fundraiser with a yard sale, and she was like, I just want you to come and like hype us up. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And so we were able to donate yarn to her to make some really fabulous blankets for people. And we were, we're now going to be a drop point for like her square drives whenever she does crocheted squares, granny square drives, that kind of thing. So yeah, we totally do a little bit of all of it.
We would be happy to do a birthday party. if
We really
anyone
would.
asked us.
I'll bring the drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about other side of adventure. Has there ever been disasters? Have there been broken vehicle or no parking, or I don't know what?
We've had a few because there's always vehicle issues. If you drive a vehicle long enough, you're gonna have trouble. We had a run of things going on. I don't know, a couple months last month and the month before, trying to get our front tires were wearing because they were tilted inward, and so the outsides were getting bald, and so we were trying to get the truck aligned and get new tires on it, and it was like this comedy of errors trying
It took us like
to
3 weeks to get it
find
all
a place
together.
that could do it.
Well, and not just then, it was like a place on our route. So we're
Mhm.
calling in like multiple states and like, can you accommodate this vehicle and this size and these tires and like, and can you do it in, this morning,
Yeah.
because that's all we have.
Okay.
So that was, but we figured a lot of that out. Last year we went up to visit our friends, the Twisted Stitchers in Prior Lake, Minnesota. And my parents went with us. So we took this vehicle when it was still an RV, and we drove both the yarn truck at the time and this RV. And so we were driving up there, and the yarn truck at the time, my steering gear completely like failed. And so we were able to, my dad was like, I don't know what's wrong with it, but something's really wrong. And so we pulled into our hotel with much difficulty because you can't like our power steering was gone.
And there was a
And,
mechanic just down the way.
just next door, and they were able to squeeze us in. We took my parents out to the Amana colonies. We made a contact there, and we showed up at a quilt show this year at the Amana colonies. So
we had a festival get canceled by ice earlier this year.
past year.
A whole weekend festival that just the whole thing got canceled.
We left the festival once, and we need to get him home because he need to go back to work in South Texas. And we got about 5 minutes down the road through our main serpentine belt, in our gas and
everything like completely shut down.
It all shut down.
We had no idea at the time what was wrong with it. We didn't know that the belt had come off, and so we were just sitting in a parking lot. And we called some of our one of our yarn dyers, Bashful Armadillo, that we carry around the truck, and
like, come help us.
Hey, how far are you out of town? And so they drove back and drove us to a hotel while we got, and it ended up working out well because we had somebody come out and fix it right there on the spot the following day.
And we got him home eventually.
I would say the problems have mostly been vehicle trouble.
Yeah.
And
we
weather.
do have some problems with people like telling us, oh, you can't park here, or but for the most part, we fit in 2 parking spots, like back-to-back parking spots. So usually it's not a big deal with that overall. Yeah. So yes, there are always going to be problems, but honestly, I wouldn't call them any more problems than I had with a brick and mortar store with broken glass or
different problems.
AC problems or a leak or something like that. So just different types of problems.
So when those problems happen, is it natural to blame each other that it was your fault, or do you team up like that? Does that bring you closer
I
together?
think a lot of these problems, there's it like clearly nothing we could have done about it. But I mean, I think
Yeah.
at the blaming each other happens when we're putting up at the end of the day, at the end of
When
the
we're
show,
tired.
when it's like 100 degrees outside and we're both tired. That's
Yeah.
when it's the small things, you know, the putting a box in the and you say something and the other person can't hear you and you're like, what?
So it's more of that usually than
Yeah.
anything else. But I do all the driving or most of the driving, because I handle maps really well. I have really great road sense. He does not.
I'm a visual maps person.
So-
She's a road sense person.
So if we ever end up switching roles and he ends up in a city like driving, I have to just like bury my head in my knitting and hopefully I don't throw up because I get really bad car sick. And I just like can't watch what's going on because otherwise I will yell at him
Yeah.
or if he's like, well, tell me what the map says, and he gets upset with me because I can't read the map the way he does. So that's when we get the most upset with each other is when we're like, why are we lost and we can't figure out what's going on?
Yep.
So
Well,
but if we have a minute to figure it out, it gets a lot better. So
is knitting something you cherish more now that you're busy with the truck and driving and organizing?
I love knitting and it is my escape from like doing other things. It is still a calm point for me, but I take on a lot of test knits. And like, cause that's something I enjoy doing is helping other designers and yarn dyers and whoever out. And so sometimes I give myself deadlines that are really hard to meet. And so that becomes a lot of work for me. And I feel stressed when I do that. But for the most part, knitting is still very much a relaxing point. I do more spinning now too. I have a Dreaming Robots electric eel wheel. We sell those too. Which is great. I love my wheel. And so that's also a point where I can sit. And even when the truck is open, I'm able to sit in the front. We turn our seats around. The full swivel seats are really cool, but I'm able to sit up there and I can spin or I can knit and I can kind of take a moment and like, while there's 10 people standing, in my bedroom, I'm still able to sit there and answer questions and talk about yarn and get something done as well and feel like I'm being productive.
I think like knitting and for you, like knitting and spinning is also like it's something that brings you peace, like even when you're especially when you're with other people, you know, like whether it's
takes that channel of my brain and calms it down. So I have something going on without being overwhelmed.
On the other hand,
he's a knitter too.
It's like work. when I knit, I'm like, okay, next row, next section. Like it's I don't know. I get more stressed, I think, when I knit.
Okay, Dean, like, do you ever try to sneak into Katie's stash and take stuff from there, or like where do
No.
For one, I buy him whatever he wants. I'm like, oh yeah, you like that yarn? Okay, I'll buy it for you.
Yeah. There's always options. So yeah, no, I don't have to do that. No.
He is very partial to alpaca.
Yeah.
So he really likes alpaca yarn. So sometimes he'll squish the alpaca a little longer, but most of the time you get really good color sense. So he'll do yarn pairings for me and like when people ask, he does a lot of like, oh, that looks good together, or that's gonna, this is how this is gonna work up. And so he's gotten a lot of experience in the last few years of working with yarn and like being able to talk yarn with people, which I think a lot of people really enjoy when they come on the truck, that they can talk to Dean about that. So.
Is Speckle totally out? Is that
no, Speckle is not out. No, Speckle is not out.
Yeah, I feel like it's back on an upswing, really. Yeah.
Well done, Speckle is on an upswing. Actually, self-striping has been flying off our shelves lately. That and the really vibrant colors.
Yeah.
So vibrant colors,
bright, bold stuff.
Really bright stuff. We have a Speckle on a really bright color. And so that one is pretty popular at the moment as well. So yeah.
Did you find some new I don't know, knitting toys or some interesting trends at H&H?
At H&H, well, we got that pretty awesome, really bright speckle yarn from Allie. From I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wall behind you. So there's a wall behind us that's covered in yarn, and then behind the camera here, there's also a full yarn wall of yarn. We got that one, and we ordered a new yarn from Storyteller Stitchery, and it's a collection. It's all based on mythology, and it's all about water mythology. And I'm really excited about how that's going to come out. And it's on a yak base,
which is called Adventure.
It's just called Adventure because we're suckers for that.
I think I would say more than something that's like a cutting edge like color or trend or something.
Mhm.
To me, I think the trend is having stories that go along with what you're selling, and having like, okay, this is my yarn, but like here's how I'm emotionally invested in it.
So would you like a yarn story?
Absolutely.
This is a yarn story.
So this is Laughing Cat Fibers, and she's out of Kentucky. She moved from Ohio to Kentucky recently. We already carried her yarn before in an alpaca blend base. This is one that she already did a lot of colors that were space themed, and so it would be planets and galaxies and things like that. My hobby is astrophotography, so I take pictures of nebulas and galaxies and all these things. And she said, I send me some pictures. I want to do colors based on some of the pictures that you're taking. And so I sent her pictures, and 5 pictures, and she did 5 colors that were special to us on a sparkle DK base. And this one is the Pleiades. So the Seven
yarn,
Sisters constellation.
And this is the picture that he took.
And so she dyed the yarn based on that. And it's, this one has been selling really well because it's people pick it up, they see it, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me tell you about that. And it's just I think that's I guess a trend, if you want to call it that now, is having a story with it.
Is that it's a personal connection. Again, it's that community. It's us being able to tell you about Laura, and that her son graduated high school last week, and that, she's dying this just for us, and that this is something that's really special to us as well as to her, because she has this connection and passion for doing the astrophotography's inspired yarns. And so those are the things I think that are more important than anything else, really, for selling yarn at this point, is going, all right, or patterns or whatever. It's having some type of emotional connection with it, because people are more likely to be excited about those things. So yeah.
How can my viewers help you to become even more successful? What would you love them to do?
Follow us and find us wherever we go. Follow along on the adventure.
I think, like we were talking about, the rising tide floats all boats. Find your local yarn dyers. You can always send us your local yarn dyers. I look at everyone that's sent to us. I scour their Etsy's, I look at their Instagrams and their Facebooks. I seek them out at shows. If you give me a recommendation, I will most definitely be excited about that. Actually, one of our dyers on the truck, Jada Wu Designs, she's out of Tacoma, Washington. She's recommended to me by someone in my knit group as a dyer, and I had never heard of her. We were getting ready to open the truck for the very first time, and she had an opening in her dye schedule and could get me in, basically, and we needed to fill in a spot. And she has become one of my favorite dyers of all times, as a person and as an artist. We flew to Tacoma multiple times. Now we've gone twice out just to visit her studio and to spend time with her. And
now she has a storefront.
And now she has and I taught there. And so those are the kinds of stories and things that we want people to tell us, so that we can make those connections and then share them with other people. So now I get to take Jess's yarn, Jada Wu's yarn, everywhere, because she doesn't leave the Pacific Northwest, but I get to take her yarn to Maryland. Like, it's such a great feeling to be able to share what these artists are bringing out. And so that's our big thing, is, go seek out your local artists, because they need you, and we need them. And so when we know about them, we're able to share their stories. We have Instagram at Yarn Adventure Truck, as well as Facebook and on YouTube. You're always welcome to join us on any of those platforms. Make suggestions, send us DMs. You can always email us, yarnadventuretruck@gmail.com.
We do a weekly email that's going to go out later today, actually on Mondays. We do a weekly email. You can sign up on our website, yarnadventuretruck.com. We do a Wednesday night Yarn Adventures video that we just basically, it's just sort of similar to this format where we sit and talk about what we've done the previous week.
We just tell you all about pretty things
Wednesday
that we
night,
do.
7 Central. So
those avenues are definitely open, and we, like I said, we always look at any suggestions of knit groups or fiber festivals or anything that you send us. If we can make it work, we will try our best to make that happen. Like I said, we do have a full schedule. We book out about a year ahead of time. So we definitely fill up, but we definitely are willing to work with people, and as long as we know about it. So send us those groups. We would love to park with you.
And I'm gonna put all this information in the description of this video, so you guys can put in the comments some suggestions, so just email this to people.
Sure.
Well, thank you so very much, Katy and Dean, for being my guest today and for sharing your story. It was really interesting to get to know you.
Thank you for having us,
We
Irina.
appreciate you, Irina.